Hi, I hope you're doing well and welcome to November. So, we're looking at a brand new month that is very different from the last month we had in October. In October, it was all about the splenic gates and sort of working with the awareness that comes with the spleen and the fears that can potentially come when the spleen is activated. And everybody would have had their own experience with what it felt like. And it was a good time to sort of go through that energy and see how your awareness and intuition and those energies work in your life and to be able to use whatever you learn to move forward. It was very jam packed, especially with Mars as well in the awareness gates. Now, Venus will continue to be in the awareness gates for until about the 18th of November. It will be going through gates 32, 50, 28, and 44. And then as of November 18th, it will move out and we won't see it again until next year. In fact, we won't see any more awareness gates of the spleen from the standard Venus, Mercury, and the Sun and Earth until next year. So that's something to look at. And we also have the Sun will be finishing up in gate 44 and the Earth, of course, in gate 24. And that'll finish up on November 4th. And so we'll be done with the awareness gates. Now, really, if we're looking at the theme of this month, we're looking at the 1-8 channel. And we're also looking at gate 34 being very prominent. So those are big energies. But on top of that, we also have the nodal shift that's happening, which is going to bring a huge different theme of energy. And I did a full video on that so you can get all the details about what you might expect and how it might impact you. So you can check that out, and I'll have the link below. And also, the other perspective is that we're going to have Mercury go retrograde for the final time in 2025, and it will be going retrograde in gates 9, 34, 14, and 43. So with Mercury in retrograde, we'll be reflecting on themes of our progress forward, because gate 9 is about every step we take before we get to the destination, and how every step we take is very important. And sometimes it doesn't look like it's a lot, but when you look back at it, which Mercury will give you the opportunity to do, you see that you come a lot further than you expected. Then we also have Mercury retrograding in gate 34. Mercury is not in its best form in gate 34. Gate 34, line 3, machismo. That's basically where we have people throwing their weight around and kind of pushing people around. It's not necessarily the bully energy, but it's pretty close. It is saying I am powerful and almost like a macho kind of energy. And so Mercury is not the best in that energy. It's nice to keep in mind how this might play out through the month in the environment and when Mercury is moving through that energy. And I will have more as we get closer. I'll be posting on my community page. So if you don't know about that, you might want to check it out, because I give even more details about the transits on the community page. And I do very frequent posts to keep everybody up to date on what's happening. Mercury will also be retrograding through gate 14. And once again, Mercury is bringing a less than savory expression. And I guess this is more of something we see in the world a lot nowadays. And that is this concept of if you throw money at something, it's going to make it better. And when we have Mercury in that energy, it's basically saying that that's it, the mentality. No matter what is happening in your life, there's this concept that money will make it better. Yes, there are absolutely times in our lives when money will be helpful, but it isn't going to solve every problem in our life. And ultimately, that's the lesson that Mercury is here to show. And that is something, again, we could be seeing on the global stage, the concept of trying to throw money at everything and sort of imagining that if you do, it will fix it. And that's not necessarily going to be the case. There are the things that humanity has to move through in life can be way more complex than the quick fix of gate 14 or the money. But again, gate 14 is another beautiful gate in that it does kind of help with Mercury being in retrograde. It does help reflect on the concept of, are you doing what you love? And if you have gate 14 defined in your body graph, or even gate 2, it becomes even more of an impactful energy in that it really talks about the concept of, do you love what you do? And if you do, it's like that whole idea of, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And that's really what this energy for gate 14 is all about. It's called possession in great measure. And the possession comes from this idea that you are fully embracing what you want to do with your life. You're doing that one thing that maybe other people might look at you and go, well, why are you doing that? That's not really, something you can make money at, but for some reason you can, because you have pursued something that makes your heart sing. And this is what Mercury in gate 14 is helping us reflect on. Is there something that we can do that we can that we love doing, that we really want to do, that makes our heart sing? And because of that, it eventually will bring us abundance. And not only that, because of the nature of gate 14, it is possession in great measure, which means that not only is the person who is doing the work that they love doing getting the abundance, they can also look to other people to help them to work on what they're working on. So in other words, they find talent, and in doing so, they lift other people up to be more abundant as well. So if you think about gate 14 being connected to gate 2, and this concept that gate 2 is the housing of the magnetic monopole, your higher purpose, your true north, the place where your life purpose is found, or the direction of your life. Well, it really does make sense that when you have that connection with what feels good, where your heart is taking you, where your North Star is, then abundance follows. And abundance looks different for everybody. For some people, it's a very simple life, but other people want a more extravagant life. And we all have a choice to make on what makes us feel good. And ultimately, that is what Mercury is showing us. Now, finally, we have Mercury moving into gate 43. And what it's called is the one-track mind. And that's where Mercury is exalted, and in that one line. And when you look at 43 line 4, this is where you have an idea, you have a concept, in your heart. And when I say no, it doesn't mean that you have any data to prove it, because that's not what mutation is about. It's a spark that shows up, and it is something that you work on and gain the pieces and eventually move into hopefully manifestation. But not everything will make it to manifestation, because mutation is just that. It doesn't always work. It could be a spark that lights a fire, but then it could just as easily be a spark that dims and goes out too. But with Mercury here, it's basically saying that what you know what you need to do, and you need to sort of be with your process to conceptualize. And it is really, to a degree, pushing away other people from your process and sort of sticking with it, which is a very mutative, individualistic energy. And so in a lot of ways, this is about sitting with, reflecting on your concepts, your far-reaching ideas, because this is really, gate 43 is about far-reaching ideas. This is where we conceptualize, but then later on we need the metamorphic gate, which is gate 23, to come in and help to simplify the information in a way where you can share it with others. Because the key with individual energy, and individual energy is playing a big role in the full month, so that's why it's important to know. But the key with individual energy is that it is a spark. But in order for it to become part of the collective, which is what most people want when they have something mutative or innovative, it's not saying everybody wants that, but a lot of people want to have the ability to share it, unless you're extremely mutative, and then you're just happy to work on it yourself. And that's absolutely fine too. We all have our process. But if you do want to share it with the collective, if you do want it to become part of the collective, then that's when the right people need to sort of support you in your idea and help you move forward to the next step after just the spark, to be able to find all the tinder, all the things you need to continue having that fire burn. And that brings us to the 1A channel. And we're going to be having a lot of that energy within this particular month. And the 1/8 channel is the creative role model. And this is basically where the spark becomes something that is shared with the collective. Now, this is not a social channel. This is a personal channel. And the only social channel for individuality is the 1222, and that is a manifesting channel, which means they work very differently. So now when we get to the 1/8, that's a completely different channel, and that is connection from the throat center to your G identity center. And we'll have this as a global definition for quite a bit of the month, from November 5th to 11th. And again, we're going to have it November 17th to 22. And also, I wanted to mention that Mercury will be in retrograde from the 11th of November to the 29th of November as well. So it's fairly early on in the month. So that's why I wanted to just talk a little bit about what we could expect. So with the 1/8 channel, we're talking about, again, this concept of it being projected, because it is an energy that has no motor, which means it's not a manifesting channel. When it's a projected channel, it means that we need recognition, invitation, or acknowledgement of what we want to share. And the whole reason for that is not to keep people small, not to keep people from talking about what's important for them. It is to make sure that the energy is aligned in a way where when you want to share, or when you're recognized or given an opportunity to share, that it has the best opportunity to grow into something. And that's the whole point of projected energy. It isn't to minimize or stop anybody from trying to be themselves or share themselves with the world. It is really saying, okay, we want you to have the best place to plant that seed. So in other words, you could say with projected energy, you have a seed and you didn't wait for anybody to acknowledge you. You didn't wait. You just said, this is what I want. You blurt out your information or whatever you have to share. And it's like throwing a seed on the pavement and then just walking away and hoping it'll grow. Well, sometimes it will, but 99% of the time it probably won't, because there's no place for it to sort of get what it needs. But alternatively, when you allow people to open the door for you and say, come on in, I really want to hear what you have to say, then suddenly it's a different place. You have this fertile soil, you have sunlight, you have just enough water, and you're planting that seed. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to grow, but it does mean that it has all the perfect circumstances. And the other thing about projected energies is that they're kind of magical in a little way. And they're magical in the way that when the time is right, and this is all about life, life is all about timing. It's that time when things are ready for what you want to share. When the time is right, then that is when you will be asked to share what you know. And when that happens, then there's that, again, one more time where someone may be open and ready to help you along your process. Because although individual energy is individual in nature, and it is a spark, it is not something that can generally grow on its own. It needs other people to bring it into manifestation, especially with anything in the projected channels. And so that is something to keep in mind. Also, because the 1/8 channel is one of those energies that is connecting the throat center to the G center. These are very sensitive energies. In other words, you're sharing from the depths of who you are. And when somebody shuts you down, I don't think there's anything that feels worse. And so that is another reason to hold on to that information, those gems, and wait for the right timing. And it may be an amazing moment when the right time, the right people ask you the right questions, and suddenly things open up in a brand new way. And that's what could happen if you sort of have patience with the process and allow the universe to sort of point the way to where your next step could be. And the other thing with the 1/8 channel that's really important is this is individual energy. And the first thing that is always required or called for from individual energy is to be authentic, to be in integrity, to speak your truth, to tell people who you truly are instead of faking it. Faking doesn't work with this kind of energy. And that is going to be a big theme throughout the month, where you're not speaking your truth or saying what you truly believe. It's easy to be called out and for people to basically not really believe in what you want to share, because they don't feel that you're coming from a place of integrity or authenticity. In fact, we may see that on the world stage, a lot of people being called out for not being very truthful or being fake. And especially with the nodes changing on the 3rd of November, going into gate 63 and 64, we now have this level of suspicion. And so if somebody's not being authentic, it's going to be even more of a red flag, where people will sort of look at you and go, what's underneath there? What are you hiding? And that level of suspicion is a big deal. And that also leads us into the nodal change that I just mentioned. And that's going to be happening on November 3rd. That's going to go on right until sort of the end of December 23rd. And that will be when we move into 3740 channel, which will be extremely impactful as far as I can see. But I will have a video coming out about that in the future, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth about what to expect then. But for now, when we're going through the 63 and 64, this is going to bring up conspiracies, skepticism, all those types of energies, but also this wanting to believe. Well, you do have an opposition with gate 63 and gate 64. They're in opposition to one another. On one side, you have give me the facts, the data, and all the information. And the other side, you have someone just telling you stories. Now, you can get by with telling stories and telling a few fibs and kind of exaggerating and making things a little bit more grandiose. But when it comes to Gate 63, you can't. It's like the facts, details, and this is what we need to see. We don't need any fluff and stuff. So you have these two energies, and some people will cling on to Gate 63 and the facts and the details and give me the information. And other people will cling to this idea of wanting to believe in magical solutions and those types of energies. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to believe in a better tomorrow, but sometimes it can get into the point of, and I mentioned this in the video that I made about the nodes, and sometimes it can get into the point where it's about magical thinking, where you feel like everything will be just taken care of. There will be a savior that will take care of us and everything will be good. And ultimately, if we're moving into 2027, ultimately, when I look at that perspective, I think the one thing that human design teaches us is that we have to be our own authority, to go from our own being, to understand, does that make sense to us? And because ultimately we all have the answers we need within us, but it's just a matter of getting the information that we need in places that we feel secure, or places that we trust, or places where we have found that a lot of times this is truthful information. And for now, with the Gate 61 as the background frequency in this global cycle, the part of the cross of the Maya, the secondary global cycle, it does give us the ability to get the truth. And so the truth is there. It's just a matter of sometimes looking for it. And so this could be, again, making up stories, because we have Gate 64, and Gate 63 is about wanting facts, being very skeptical. It could be even skeptical about things that are truthful. And so that's the background frequency. And then you have this individual energy that wants to express itself, move back to this idea of authenticity. If you're in any way you're trying to make something be a little bit different than what it truly is, the bottom line is to avoid suspicion and to be seen as your true self. Just being who you are is going to be the easiest path forward. And then you never have to worry about something you said and maybe it was something to impress somebody, but maybe it may not be quite true. It was a little white lie. And then later on, you sort of forget it. You never have to do that when you're always being authentic. It's just all your information, all your truth. It's all there. It doesn't go away. And so it does serve you well, especially with the background frequency of 63 and 64. And we also have Saturn moving through Gate 63, line 4, as I talked about before. It's espionage, and this could be when you find out very important secrets that can help you to move forward in your life. And we might see big secrets revealed on the world stage too, and that might be something. And it could be related to the military or those types of things. And that's because Gate 36 is in opposition to Gate 6 at all points. It doesn't always have to be that way, but it could be. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then from November 10th to December 15th, we have Saturn moving into Gate 36, line 3. And this is the line of transition. This is the end of the road. And basically, Saturn is tying a big bow on everything that has happened with Neptune going through Gate 36 over the last couple of years. This is where we are forced into a new beginning. We're forced into change. And most times the easiest way to move with it is just to move with it, as opposed to trying to grab parts of the past and take it into the future, which a lot of people still want to do. But this is basically saying nothing behind us anymore. And now it's only moving ahead and seeing how life plays out, because it's experiential energy. It's also about taking responsibilities for the choices we make, for the things that we sort of jump into. And again, I said before that this feels like a global type of energy. And this is especially going to be impactful from a global perspective on the president of the United States, because that's going to be connected directly to his design sun. Let's see how that plays out, because again, this is an emotional energy, and it will definitely be Saturn sitting right on the sun and saying, okay, let's make you responsible for all the choices that you've made in the past, or the choices that you are going to make in the future. And so we'll see how that plays out. We also still have Pluto moving through gate 60, line 6. I talked a lot about that. And we know that this is about rigidity and limitation. The big key with this is to keep yourself in a place where you're not drifting, especially if you have gate 3 or the 360 or gate 60. It's easy to get into this path of rigidity in sort of keeping yourself in such a rigid pattern that it's almost oppressive. That's the most important part of it, is to keep yourself in a way where you have some wiggle room. It's okay to have structure. It's okay to, have some details and deadlines that are very rigid that you need to make. But on the other hand, it can be very restrictive to the point where it's almost like a suffering, and that's not worth it. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, one more thing is that we have the activation of the 3420 a couple times this month, from October 30th to November 4th, and then later from November 22nd to 28th. This is going to be very busy energy. This is pure manifesting generator energy. If you don't have a consistently defined sacral, this could be a lot of energy coming at you. And so I always say, and even if you do, this is a lot of energy. Even somebody who has a 3420 channel defined can get burnt out, can do too much. So imagine if you don't have that channel normally and suddenly you have it, it can be a lot. And so it's really important to try and moderate our energy so that we get what we want to get done. We use the energy to the best of our advantage, but yet we don't ever get to the point where we burn out. And this is going to be especially important for anybody with integration. And that's the gates 10, 20, 34, and also the 57. So if you have any of those, gate 34 will hook into them, and you can have one or more than one. Gate 34 will hook in, and with Mars moving from the energy from October 30th to November 4th. So that's going to be very powerful energy. Mars is very Mars can bring out the aggressive part of it. And so that's something to keep in mind. You might see that on the world stage. Again, this real push to be busy, to get things done. Again, it can be a lot, because this is energy for getting things done and working. Basically, there is a lot less balance with the work-life balance when it comes to 3420, and that's something to keep in mind. So those are all things to watch as we move through the energy of the month. But overall, the month looks good. The new moon and the full moon look quite nice as well, and I will do videos on those. And with that said, I hope you have a wonderful month ahead, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care, and bye for now.